2 years ago, I was contacted about making a memorial piece of jewellery incorporating the ashes of a very loved dog that sadly passed away. We drew a few designs, came up with a final design that the client was happy with. If I show you that here. So these were the initial designs that we came up with, and then incorporated a couple of those different sort of elements that I had on those and came up with a final design. Now when I sketch designs, I quite often will make little doodles about thicknesses, sizes, but I don't always, because majority of the time they're just a one-off piece for that, especially for that commission. In this case, I did not write any of those measurements down. 2 years on, and the lovely lady has contacted me again to make another memorial piece. She wants exactly the same design because sadly another one of her lovely dogs has passed away. So yes, she wanted it identical to the first one, but she didn't want to part with the pendant, which I take as a huge compliment that she didn't want to be without it. But it did make it extremely difficult to come up with an exactly the same sort of size and shape design. So that is the project for today.
Kiss of metal. That is rock and roll poetry.
Without physically having the pendant made it quite tricky to make sure the design was exactly the same. So the only thing I thought of was to request she send me some photos of the pendant next to a ruler so that I had a scale. I asked if she could send me some pictures of the ruler next to it on the side, and then also either the top or the bottom, so that I could figure out a scale plan and then I could sketch the design based on that. And that's exactly what I did. So these are the pictures, and then I just gradually just plotted all the points based on those pictures and drew the design on a bit of silver that I could then finally saw out and start making. I spent a lot of time comparing, flicking back to the picture of the first one that I made to the one that I was currently making, just flicking back and forward constantly, looking at the infinity sign and how thick it was compared to the heart shape, and trying to match it as best as possible. I mean, I think it is a little bit different, and that's the thing with handmade things, that was definitely a challenge with this one. finished result close to as possible, maybe not completely identical, but like I said, it is handmade, so things tend to be complete one-offs and no two things are the same. The client also wanted to be able to put the pendants together, I think back to back, and wear them on a chain together. So I also included some little jump rings, or they're sort of hinge rings where they've got like a little hinge. So what you could do is clasp them, put them on the same ring, and then wear them together, or separate them and wear them on separate chains. I really enjoyed making that, and the additional sort of challenge of trying to make it the same size and shape was certainly a great challenge. I love anything where it's like a kind of bit like a logical puzzle or something you got to figure out. So I enjoyed making that just as much as I did when I made the first one.